Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Welcome back to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with your hosts, Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. Joining us today is hospitality and travel entrepreneur and the co-host of the Destination Everywhere podcast, Andy McNeill. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Katie and Stan, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to our conversation about business, hospitality, and travel. It's going to be great.
Absolutely. So as we're kind of jumping in, some of our listeners may have not heard anything about AMI. Tell us exactly what your company does, and then kind of the background of what inspired you to really put such a focus on the power of travel.
Absolutely. So AMI stands for American Meetings Incorporated. You can learn everything about us at americanmeetings.com, but we're a global and meeting events agency, and we work with some of the world's top brands to have a positive and often life-changing impact through live and in-person meetings, as well as virtual meetings. And a lot of that has to do with travel and taking our clients all over the world. We go to about 70 countries a year with our clients, and we create those shared experiences for them and their clients that really drives business.
Fantastic. So is there anything in your personal background that really inspired a love of travel for you? Maybe phrase it, when did your love of travel get started?
Well, my father loved to travel. He was a big diver and loved to travel all over the Caribbean. I'm born and raised in Florida, so that was easy for us. So we got to see all these great countries in a very short amount of time. Over the course, 18 years, my dad took us to countries all down the Caribbean into South America, and then eventually into Europe to do some great diving and snorkeling. And so that really drove my passion. But, I think travel for certain people is innate, regardless of what your background is. And some people just love to do it. So no matter where you grew up, and Stan, you talk about how you grew up in Arkansas and how you didn't travel until a little later, but you had this kind of innate feeling in you that you really wanted to do that. And so that's how I felt. That's how I've always felt. And when I was really looking to start my own company, and I had the opportunity to work with some great mentors who ran businesses like the one I have now, they really put an emphasis on, developing and growing your business through travel, which we certainly have done. So, I think for some of us, it's just in our blood and we'd love to do it. And I know we do here at AMI.
Absolutely. So at AMI, what are some of the different solutions and services that you guys offer?
Well, if you think about, what you need to do to plan for a meeting, an event, and take people somewhere, you have to identify the destination. You have to identify the travel around that. You have to choose the venue that you're going to host the event at. So AMI does all of that, as well as everything around attendee management. So making sure that from the second we pick up a client or their client at their home, to take them to the airport, getting them to the destination, the program, and then back with just a high level of bespoke customer service. That's really what we're known for. So we do the full package and take about 100,000 people a year around the world, making sure that they have a great experience.
That's great. So you do a lot of logistics.
Yeah, we're a big logistics firm, really wrapped around a high level of customer service. But yeah, we do lots of moving parts in our business, no question about that.
Yeah, to some degree, it sounds like you kind of take one of the stressful sides, the stressful pieces that can be stressful of travel, and really streamline that with your expertise. So I love that.
You absolutely hit the nail on the head. I have a world-class team of meeting managers, project managers that think of every possible thing that could go wrong, plan for it, and execute flawlessly. So very proud of the team we've built here at AMI, and I just can't say enough about them. They're fantastic.
That's phenomenal. Stan, what questions I'm hogging all of Andy's time. What questions do you have for Andy about AMI?
Well, lots of questions. This inspires me to want to go to the airport and go through a metal detector.
Right.
And yeah, and head out for sure. One of the things I've noticed, on business travel is hotels a lot of times look the same everywhere you go. I know that's not entirely true, but I'm curious. So, what do you do to in curating the experience so that it's not just an experience of staying in a hotel and doing meetings? What do you do to add to that experience so that people really get a sense of place and have an authentic experience that's different from what they might have had if they went to some other place?
Yeah, I think authenticity is a big part of what we do, and really trying to make even a business program special. Like, you don't want to travel someone to, Greece and, for a 3 day, conference and not give them a little taste of Greece, right? They could be in a hotel in New York City or a hotel in Tampa, or they happen to be in Greece. They need to take that time. So we really try to plan that out with the client. Obviously, the client is the driving, factor, but we talk about building business relationship through shared experiences. And when you do that, the business comes in, because you're providing not only an educational experience for your clients, but you're providing them a life experience. And when you do that and take those extra special touches and look, and that's why we actually created the Destination Everywhere podcast, because we were trying to convey to our clients that when you take somebody somewhere, they need to experience everything, and that will provide value completely separate from what your business is and the reason that you're there. So merging those two things together and really looking for those out of pocket experiences, talking to the concierge, knowing what the tourist traps are, and then to say, okay, now what are not the tourist traps? What was something really, really unique? So we really dive in there and try to create those experiences that provide a special interaction for the attendee.
So, Andy, I know, your focus is on business travel, curating experiences for your business clients, but also happen to know from our conversation, you have a family, you have children, and you travel with them, right?
We do. And we started that early, very, very early, probably about 6 months old. Our business requires us to travel. And so we've been all over the world with them. They've been to, I think it's about 14 countries at this point, and we've got a trip coming up in April, which will add to that. And really what we want to create is global, in our kids, a sense of global citizenry and being able to understand the impact of the world. We sit here in the United States, and, we're so blessed in the U.S., and there's so many great places to go in the U.S., but, 35% of United States citizens never leave the United States. And so we wanted to teach our children that there's a whole world out there, that they have great experiences wherever they are. And, I hope, they get to live abroad and experiences those different cultures. You mentioned Japan, Stan, early. And I know the impact when I was about 19 and when I went to Japan, the impact it had on me. I've seen such a different culture and seeing what the history was and what the different things that they do on a day-to-day basis that are just slightly different, and know that things can be done different. I think it just gives you a sense of how small you really are and what the world is really like. And in today's, global economy, if you're running a business of any size, most of us are doing business with someone outside the U.S., whether it's a supplier or whether it's a customer. So I think it's important to have that global perspective. And so we're trying to build that with our kids and traveling with them everywhere. And it's been a lot of fun. And it's a great way to, create a sense of ownership for the kids about the world.
Still remember walking into a supermarket in Japan and walking up and down the aisles. I didn't recognize a single thing on the shelf. And then I'm noticing the people there, they didn't look undernourished. They looked healthy. So I'm thinking these people are eating all this stuff and I have no idea what this is. So it's like there's a whole different diet people have. And that's one of the things that had never occurred to me, that people's lives can be so incredibly different, but still be
Yeah, I mean, I've
successful.
got a story about Japan and that, when you said different foods, I remember one of the first meals my host, and they truly feel when someone comes in, if you're doing business with them, that they are a host of their country and they're trying to show you, give you all these experiences. That's definitely built into the Japanese culture. And I was sitting there and we had all this food on the table, and in Japan it's very rude not to at least try something that's been provided to you. And so they had these little they look like French fries, and I went to grab them and they had eyes on them. They were little fried fishes, but they were very, very tiny and you couldn't even hardly tell what they were. And I sat there and ate it, and it was actually quite good.
Right.
But the experience, taught me that that to be open to different ideas and different foods. But I tell you, I was very hungry after that, and there was a McDonald's right underneath my hotel, and I went straight to the McDonald's afterwards, and that was an experience. They had seaweed on the menu and stuff, but they still had a burger, and I definitely had a burger that first night I was there.
I did father-son trips with my boys, just me and my son when they were about 15, each of them. And I took my oldest son to Japan, and that's actually where he said he wanted to go. So we went to Japan. And I remember one morning we sat down at, I guess, breakfast, and whatever we got served, we looked at each other and we seriously questioned, was this animal or vegetable material? We didn't know if it was if
A
it
lot of
was
times it's hard to
vegetable.
tell, right?
Right, yeah. And so, but we ate it, and it worked out fine. It turns out when you do those things, sometimes you discover things that you actually like that you would have
And that's the
never
power.
known
That's the
about.
power of travel, right? It's
Hmm.
those individual experiences that build up and create that shared experience that you have with whoever you're traveling with. I couldn't agree more, and I've got hundreds of stories about things we've tried and either liked or not liked. And kids are picky. We've had some hungry nights in our hotel rooms with the kids
Yeah.
because they didn't want to try something. But I think they've learned to at least try it, and if they don't like it, that's okay.
Yeah, so my background with travel, I really didn't travel a lot, kind of like Stan, until I was in college. And then one of the summer things that I did in college every year was we would take a group of middle school students and we would take them to two different countries over the summer. So my first real travel experience was also I got to view it through the lens of these young kids who had also never been anywhere either. And one thing that I can really say about that goes right along with what AMI does and the vision of AMI is that sharing those travel experiences as a college student with all of these young middle school kids barely out of elementary, we created lifelong bonds and lifelong relationships. And so, I'm much older now. They're all grown-ups now. They're married with their own kids, but a lot of those people are still people that I have connections with. And, we're friends on social media and they send me pictures and we still stay in touch because there's just something about traveling and experiencing a different world with someone, whether it's a kid or your
Yeah.
child or a coworker, that really tends to build a lasting bond. And so I've definitely seen that and really experienced that myself. And I love that that's kind of one of the visions behind your company is allowing these people to, and you mentioned it before we started the podcast, if you're just sitting in a meeting room, that could be anywhere. It could be in some podunk town, it could be in New York, if that's all it is. But tell us a little bit about the types of experiences you cultivate to make sure that if there's a company that's having a meeting in Greece, they really get to experience that culture. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, so that all starts with great project management and understanding your client and your client's needs and their goals. And so that's what we do every day. We actually put together, anybody can go to ourfavoritehotels.com, which are our top favorite hotels for business travel and creating those shared experiences, which will kind of show you. And what you'll see, that's a digital catalog when you go there. And what you'll see is we talk about the hotel and what the business experience, but we also talk about what the local flavor is and how to experience that local flavor. And so I think we try to communicate that early with our clients about creating that shared experience with your client. And by doing that, you create a stronger bond and stronger business relationships. I do want to just jump back to talk about my first job out of college was something very similar where we would take groups over to different parts of the world. And I'll never forget, I had a group of like 30 high school kids, and we're going from Munich to Paris on an overnight train. And I had never been on an overnight train then, and there was no air in the cars. And when the windows go down, you could stick your feet out the windows because that helped bring the draft of the. So all of us, me and all the kids, have our feet hanging out. I can only imagine. And then these other trains were going by us like at 60 miles an hour, and our feet were probably only 3 feet from their train. And I can only imagine what the other train was seeing with all these feet just hanging out the window. So back to, creating those shared experiences. I haven't thought about that in 30 years. So thank you for prompting my memory. And it really is about creating those things that you don't even plan for, right? But you have to put everybody in the right scenario, and then those things take care of themselves, those experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So before we run out of time, I do want to touch just a little bit on the Destination Everywhere podcast, which you co-host, because I got to listen to a couple of episodes, and it's really great. It's really helpful for our listeners. It's destinationeverywhere.com is where you can go. And so, Andy, tell us just a little bit about what our listeners can expect from your podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for mentioning it. So our podcast is focused on creating, kind of communicating a destination itself, what hotels we've been to and can recommend, and also what experiences we can do. And so how we do that is we bring in a local celebrity or a local chef or someone that has a real strong connection to the community that can help us with those kind of out-of-pocket ideas. So yeah, we certainly talk about some of the most popular things, but what we really try to leave everybody with are those things that you can do when you go to, Paris or Munich or, Argentina, and what's kind of outside that, and get it from a local perspective. So we try to take it from the business side, the hotels that we can recommend, the venues that we know and the experiences, but also get that local flavor from an expert. And when you do that, we've gotten so many great ideas over the years about how to create special experiences that we didn't even know, even though we had been to the city. And that's just been a lot of fun. So we've grown that. We started it during COVID to provide a way to support our hotel partners all over the world and give them some advertising, but also to provide context around travel and that it's not going away. And though AMI is a different company that was in 2021, because we now do a large portion of virtual events, we believe in person is the way to really create those relationships. But, virtual events are also a very important part of your overall meeting strategy. And those two together create a great plan for how you can execute your business through meetings and events and travel.
Yeah, so, Andy, love. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Stim.
Yeah, I've got to ask before we run out of time here, what's the hot new destination in the world that I haven't heard of?
Oh gosh, you're gonna put me on the spot here because there's so many. So what we've been doing a lot lately is a very small country in South America, Central America, called Belize, which is absolutely spectacular, but it's so small it often gets overlooked by Mexico and Costa Rica and Panama, but it has some of the world's best diving and some of the most beautiful boutique hotels I've been to. And so it's really had a resurgence after COVID. And so we've sent several clients down there recently, and they've just had a fantastic experience. So if you're going to South America, and I think actually, Stan, you said you were headed to South America. It's not that far. It's a little far north. Everything down there, everything's a 2-hour hop. So country to country. So if you have time, you should definitely visit Belize and shoot me an email, and I'll give you a couple of great hotel recommendations.
I will do that. I've not been to Belize, so that's on the list.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, Andy, is there anything that we didn't ask you about that you would like our listeners to know about?
No, this has been just, it's so much fun to do a podcast with people with shared, shared goals and shared experiences. And we definitely had that today. So I hope the listeners learn something. If you're interested in our services, we're happy to talk to you. And please listen to the Destination Everywhere podcast. It's on all the major channels. We'd love to have you join us for some great experiences. So thanks so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Well, for all of our listeners, this has been the Legacy Leaders Podcast with your hosts, Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. Today's guest was Andy McNeill, and to connect with Andy, you can find him on LinkedIn, or you can visit AmericanMeetings.com or DestinationEverywhere.com. Andy, thanks again so much for joining us.
Thanks, Stan and Katie. It was great talking to you.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit PinnacleLegacyLaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.